Hello, everybody. This is Salil Tripathi from the Institute for Human Rights and Business. I'm here in Oslo, in Norway, and on the 10th of November, which is, of course, the 20th anniversary of the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other Ogoni leaders who were executed in 1995. They were fighting against the activities of Shell and other oil companies in the Niger Delta, which led to a very devastating impact on the environment and the human rights. And it has had a pivotal importance in the whole discussion about business and human rights. I am here with Nnimmo Bassey, who knew Ken very well. He's from the Niger Delta. He's a writer, a poet, an activist, and feels strongly about the role of companies in the region and what needs to be done for human rights. So thank you very much for spending time with us. Nnimmo, my first question is to you about what is the significance of Ken? If he were around today and if he were to look at Niger Delta, would he feel that he has achieved something, or would he feel that the struggle is still where it was and things are still very bad?
I think he would have seen today that things have moved a bit in the right direction.
Right.
But at the same time, he would have seen that the pollution has become even more intense than it was when he was alive. 20 years down the road, the oil spills have not stopped. Even though oil extraction in Ogoni land has stopped,
Yes.
the pipelines going through Ogoni land are still spilling massive volumes of oil, and all the water bodies in Ogoni land have been polluted with hydrocarbon contaminations.
Right.
The same with the land in most places. But he would be satisfied that the Ogoni people are still very mobilized. They've learned a lot about the contaminants in the environment. The Ogoni people struggle, and his own struggle has become very instrumental to radicalizing a whole lot of ethnic nationalities in Nigeria and inspiring communities campaigning against oil spills and oil extraction related destructive activities around the world. He would have seen that the Ogoni people have become very instrumental to building the environmental justice movement in many places. So I think he would be satisfied that at least something has been achieved, and that there is hope as long as the people stay mobilized and ready to defend their livelihoods and environment.
Now, one of the points that you touched upon when you spoke earlier today, you touched upon what I had referred to, the voluntary principles and the extractive industries transparency initiative. These initiatives, of course, happened in early 2000, but they are not unrelated to the Nigerian crisis. They would not have happened but for the shocking effect of what it did. Have they been useful? And if they are, to what extent? Have they changed the behaviors of governments? And have they changed the behaviors of security forces?
Complex question.
Sure.
I don't think they've changed the behavior of security agencies because they still prefer to protect pipelines and corporate interests rather than people. They're harassing people instead of protecting the people. So that has been the pattern since extractive activities took root in the Niger Delta. But in terms of overall company behavior, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative has compelled corporations to make a level of publication of what they are paying to the governments. And sometimes, interestingly, the government has claimed to receive more than what corporations say they pay. So that shows that this kind of record keeping is a bit spooky, so to speak, and one cannot really depend on the information that is coming out from either the government or the corporations. But what really interests me and what I think is wrong is not far-reaching enough that we hear about publish what you pay, but we don't hear about publish what you pump. We really want to know what is being extracted from the soil, from the communities. And then when we know what is extracted, we can know the monetary value of what has been extracted. Then we can now ask the question, has exactly what has been extracted been paid for? If this is not possible in Nigeria as at now, because we don't have systems of metering that are independently verifiable. So we have to depend on records that are being issued, and records can, just like statistics, can be used for any purpose. And so, yes, the transparency arguments need to also include the environmental cost. I think this is being recognized to some extent, but it's not really been fully integrated into the accounting system. So we have the ecological debt, we have the amount of livelihoods being destroyed that can sometimes not be computed. It's a problem, but you cannot put price on nature.
Right.
If we're really going to try to put a monetary value on what is being damaged in Ogoniland or the Niger Delta as a whole, all companies will be totally bankrupt.
Absolutely.
They can't pay. They can't pay for it.
Yeah. So as you look forward, what would you want companies to do in order to be consistent with their own commitments on human rights on one hand and environment on the other? Because a lot of these companies, Shell included and Chevron and most of the companies are part of either the voluntary principles or the global compact, and they say that we have learned from the past and we are trying to do everything right.
To start with, I would like corporations to adhere very strictly to even the voluntary principles, because they don't keep to the voluntary principles. Right. And then, of course, on the part of governments and citizens of this world, we have to recognize ecocide as a law, ecocide as a crime,
right.
At the level of International Court of Justice. So that when any corporation commits a crime, like when an oil well is seen as a crime scene, then the corporate leaders should be held personally liable, just like presidents are held accountable for war crimes. They should not hide behind military shields and avoid being held accountable for impunity. This is what I think needs to be done. This would help the corporation behave better, will also help defend human rights and help communities have a breathing space.
And my final question is about the whole idea of a human rights defender. We certainly know what Ken Saro-Wiwa went through, but if we look around, well, we don't have any case of the kind that we know from the Saro-Wiwa case of executions and so on, but there is pressure on NGOs. They are being criminalized, their funding sources are being cut off, laws are being created to make their lives harder. How important is a human rights defender? I mean, we all know that they're important for the communities, but how should companies interact with them? If they have a future Ken Saro-Wiwa, and it doesn't have to be in oil, it could be in another industry like pharmaceuticals, what should the company do when it comes up with a dissenter like that, saying that what you're doing is wrong?
I think corporations need to learn to listen.
Right.
They need to learn to hear also, not just listen. And they need to take to heart what they're hearing and act. When human rights defenders speak up, they're not speaking up because of personal interest.
Yeah.
Most times they're in their own they put themselves at great risk. So they're doing things for the common good. And the common good includes workers, includes labor, includes corporations. And so this should be recognized as essential social service that should be enhanced rather than being penalized.
Absolutely.
And so this is where I look at it. Corporations don't have to be evil. But when they promote abuse of human rights, promote criminalization of dissent, of community activists, I think they presented themselves as agents of the devil, so to speak. And as a recent report by Global Witness showed that on the average about 2 community activists, environmental activists are being murdered so regularly, every week somewhere in the world. This is very alarming, and it doesn't speak well about a world that should be getting more humane and more civilized. We're moving into savagery. And barbarism is not an option.
Absolutely.
We're going to preserve the planet and preserve any form of humanity on Earth.
Thank you very much indeed, and all the best for your work. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.